How do you turn this thing around?
Boom. Look at all those 2254s.
We're going to come into Mission Sound now. Serial number 617.
Beauty queen.
Look at
So
that.
we start over here. That's a monitor section, 24-in monitor section.
So Ollie, explain to these kind folks here that, you know, in the old days they had they had split consoles, and more current consoles are inline. So tell us the difference between a split and an inline console and what that little monitor section is.
So split console is actually way more simple. This is an input section over here. We have 1073s with mic pre's, EQs, bus modules up here, fader. That goes to tape. That's all it does, right?
Right.
Over here, we listen off of tape.
There you go.
And this has 24 pretty much line amps, which goes straight to a mix bus.
It's a totally different universe. It's like those channels just do the inputs for recording. These do the playback.
Right.
Where an inline console would have monitoring for tape returns on the channels that are sending out audio to the.
Exactly. So it's what's called a split path. And on inline consoles, you can generally flip that path so that the faders can become monitoring and the upper path can become your input section, or vice versa, which is nice because then you can grab faders and play with levels on the way back.
Can you zoom in on those 1073s for us? That's the mic pre-EQ section, guys. I've never seen them look like that. Those are.
Yeah, these are kind of one-offs. Now they're consecutive serial number also.
Oh my goodness.
So there's 26. I think they start at, I believe it was 1142 and go 26 consecutive serial numbers.
And what is the market value on a 1073 currently? I haven't looked because it's depressing.
Whatever you can get, but between 5,000 and 6,000, I would imagine is
for a mono module.
Yeah, is that kind of going rate. But people are putting them up, 2 for 18,000 or whatever. It's
oh my goodness,
it's absolutely ridiculous. And then up top we have 2254As.
Wow.
And these are configured as mono or stereo pairs for the console, and they're patchable. Now you can also put them in quad. Over here, these were set up for the quad bus.
Wow.
So they're
incredible.
Yeah, pretty crazy, right?
And I've never seen them with that coloring on them either. So rare.
Well, again, all the consoles back then were one-off consoles, so somebody had requested pretty knobs.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I've seen those 2254s going for 13 to 14 grand in a rack powered supply situation for a stereo pair.
Sure.
Just insane. And they're beautiful compressors. They're just nothing else does
they're
that.
Really usable.
They're really usable.
They're very nice. They end up generally either on a drum bus. They're great on bass.
What are they not good on? There's nothing they're not good on.
Yeah, I guess.
Prove me wrong.
Mix bus. I don't know. Maybe
really?
It depends on what you're mixing. If you're mixing a
I guess so.
But
can you zoom out real quick at the console? So all those little white switches on the top, guys, that you're seeing there, or go back in. I'm sorry. Show like sort of a channel strip. Those are the buses. So in the old days, we'd hit down number one. Those were all like there's 16 buses on there, right? You'd hit down number one.
It was set up for a 16-track tape machine.
So number one would go to track one, number two would go to track two. So when you were working on that channel, and once you had your EQ and mic preset, you'd hit the number on the tape machine you wanted it to go to. And then it would go off to that tape machine and return through the jukebox.
So we've wired this console so that the return from tape not only goes to the monitor section, but it also comes back to the input section. In the old days, if they would patch the tape returns back to the input section.
Gotcha.
So that they could then go through the 1073s again.
Yep.
But what we've done is normal it to both sides. So you can actually pull up, say, drums on 1 and 2 over here, and also on 1 and 2 on the 1073 section, do a parallel drum bus or parallel drum EQ or whatever you want. Most of the time days with the number of recalls that we have, we're on the monitor section aligned to 0 over here. So all the faders at 0, right, in 12 stereo pairs. But then for the special sauce, say on the vocal, we'll come over to this side of the console, run it through the 1073s again, hit outboard compressors.
So when you say you run it through 1073s, there's a setting on those mic pre's that will allow line traffic.
Yeah, okay. So if you zoom into a 1073, sorry, here we go. If you go to this, if there's 2 zeros in a 1073, there's this 0, right, which says off. And above this is line input.
Yeah.
Below this is mic input.
Yeah.
And then you go over here, and there's another 0 over here. And this is the part that goes to 11. above this, you have another another amplifier, microphone amplifier, so you can get 80 dB of gain.
So for people who don't know, when you go into a mic pre looks for level down around minus 50, 60, 70, even 80 with this one. So they're looking for signals way down there. And then whenever you take it and send it to the tape machine, it gets up to line level, which is right around 0, essentially plus 4 up to minus 10 in that area. In this circuit will be fed from either of those levels. So you can go back and hit some good, you can EQ it or just get the line amp involved and have another sort of tonality for your sound.
Absolutely.
You see, it's high passes and low pass filters on the bottom of the EQs there, right?
Yep. So it starts out with a high pass, right? There is no low pass. And then EQ points on the low are 35, 60, 110, and 220. The blue knob is 360, 1.6, 3.2, 4.8, and 7.2. I guess Rupert arbitrarily decided these were the frequencies we needed.
And they were different on different, like if you went and got a set of 3211, what's in the 8050s?
32114s.
Yeah, those were just different frequencies. Also, those are...
These have different frequencies. These are 31104s.
And keep in mind, people, when you look at these are concentric knobs, meaning the outer circle would maybe select the frequency and the inner circle would be the gain for that frequency. So, and below that, you have a bunch of routing to auxes and whatnot and pannings for the main fader, I guess, right?
Yeah. So panning for the main is above on the bus modules. So what we did was this had no mix bus when we bought it.
Oh wow!
In order to mix, basically you had to take everything. Well, if you were on this side of the console, it did. Everything sums to what was the quad bus. So back in the 70s, they had quad sound. So you had left front, left rear, right rear. And right on this side of the console, there were 4 big faders. And you had to fade the 4 faders to fade this console. This is before Pro Tools. There were no fades. You had to do it yourself. So the input section of this literally had no mix bus.
It makes you wonder what this was built for, you know?
It was a tracking console.
I guess so.
It was literally a tracking console.
And they just didn't think you'd ever mix on it other than through the jukebox.
Well, it had interesting things. So as a tracking console, right, 16 tracks was already in the 70s not enough, right? You know, it's like the Beatles had 2 4-tracks linked together. 16 tracks wasn't enough. So what people used to do is they used to rebus and bounce down tracks. Like you'd have maybe record your drums on 4, but then you'd bounce it to 2 and free up 2 more tracks. So what this had was this rebusing section, which allowed you to take channel 8 through 16, and over here, underneath this thing that I don't use, rebus it down to 1 through 8.
Got it.
So it was literally wired. So with a push of a button, you could sum tracks. Completely unnecessary. Didn't need it.
Right.
But when I bought this console, I had 2 tape machines. I did not own Pro Tools. So it was it was maybe a thought. me see, what else did we do to it? It had, there was no, this is a mute here for the monitor section. There were no mutes, there were no pans, and there were no solos on the monitor section.
No pans.
No pans. No, it's
That's
LCR, baby.
It's so great that the consoles are so amazing, but they didn't really predict the future incredibly well. When you think about quad kind of never becoming a thing, right? With just being able to do a mix down and have anything on the right side of the desk actually work as a mixing console. There's a lot of things that are just like, man, they missed it, but man, they got it so right with the way it just sounds when you put audio through it.
Well, exactly. The guy was completely functional as a tracking console.
Right.
It sounds good. And honestly, I haven't come by another Neve that sounds as good.
That's so cool that you have it, dude.
Super happy about it.
Awesome. Show us some of your outboard gear.
Alrighty. Oh, just a note on the speakers.
Yeah.
Big ass ATCs. So when I built the studio, I had already fallen in love with ATCs, and I lived in the studio for a year and didn't soffit mount anything because I didn't know what I was going to do, and I couldn't afford ATCs at that point. So after a year, I got Nick Whitaker in here to shoot the room, and he worked for ATC, and he's a studio designer. And he was like, yeah, just do this and put them in the corners. They'll sound great. And guess what? They sound great. So outboard gear. Let's see where you want to start. Let's start up. All right, I have a skylight in the control room, and it kind of. This is just normal stuff, new stuff, Manley. These are Eric Valentine's channel strips. They're UTA, undertone audio, and they are insane.
That's what I hear.
They're so good. You kind of have to be a rocket scientist like Eric to use the EQ, but once you get it, it's really cool. Another Neve just for fun.
That's a broadcast Neve, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are actually, I have another one that's out being repaired. Those were my first two Neve modules.
Oh, that's cool, dude.
So yeah, I just gave them to my daughter. This is a Sontec EQ.
Yeah.
Super
pervasive
usable.
in the mastering world.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to the sort of the main rack. This is an Audioscape program equalizer. It's a really, really nice version of a Pultec.
Yeah.
Then
you have a Pultec killer, a Lang. Wow, I haven't seen one of those in forever.
I want 10 of these. Incredible. These are the best EQs ever.
Yeah, they are.
But I'll tell you a little secret. The Better Maker EQ, right? The one that's USB controlled. I guess it's a 502C, and it fits in a 500 rack. Sounds exactly like a Lang.
Oh wow, what's it called? I want to check that out.
It is called. Yeah, so you there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me grab one so I can show it to you. Here, are you seeing what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah. Better Maker.
EQ 502P.
Oh wow, and it's all controlled via USB, so you don't really see anything.
It runs like a plug-in.
Yeah.
And you put it on your Pro Tools and it's stereo, and it sounds insane.
Wow.
Really good. Yeah, I am not 100. I don't care if it's old or new.
Yeah, right.
If it works, it's great. So then there's an Overstayer. A Valley People's.
Which one's the Overstayer? Is that compressor with the?
This one right here.
Okay.
This guy. It's basically a distortion box, but it's really cool.
I
don't know what it does. Sounds great. Valley People 610 below it, which is a sleeper like crusher compressor, room mics, pianos, sounds really great. DCL 200 dual compressor, UA mic pre's, 2 mic pre's down there. Transient designer, Alan Smart, right?
That's the SSL.
Yeah, it's SSL bus compressor on steroids.
Mm-hmm.
When I originally got set up the studio, I had an SSL bus compressor, but it couldn't take 29 dB of headroom that the Neve has. You know, we don't look at meters on the Neve because it just sounds good, and then you turn it up and it sounds better. But the problem is then you hit a piece of outboard gear,
right,
and the thing just crushes. But the Smart could take it, so we replaced it with that. And then there's a Phoenix thermionic culture, which is a really, really nice, very Muse squish box. The Fatso 2 distressors. I could have 10 distressors and be happy.
Yeah.
Retro Audio 176.
Awesome stuff.
Hate you for having them.
Stay level. They're great. When they're great on stuff, they're amazing on stuff. I love the 176 is great on vocals. Stay level is a great bass box. It's good on some vocalists, a lot of male vocalists.
Do you spend a lot of time just putting things through a box like that to see if it's magic? Is that like a lot of your process?
I do different stuff for almost everything. So yeah, I do a lot of experimentation.
Right.
As long as it doesn't become a hindrance to the performance. You know, a lot of times there is a point at which you become, at which the technical side of things becomes more important than music.
Yeah.
I try to avoid
but like when you're mixing, sometimes it's nice to just like run it through 5-8 things and then see if any of them just come up a little bit better than the last, and then start working from that point.
Absolutely. You know, honestly, most of that happens in the box.
Right.
You know, I mean, at this point in time, and all of this gear I use every day tracking. I try and get my sounds to tape.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So they're there. So there is a certain amount, you know, and it's a lot of times it's like stuff you would never ever think. You know, you mean you did that on that? And I was like, well, yeah, I tried it and it sounded good. When we go out to the live room, I'll show you an example of it. So just moving on, this is the One Trick Pony Chandler Limited EMI compressor. It's like the bet. If you want to sound like George Harrison on guitar, that's the one.
Greatest piano compressor of all time, too.
In limit, though, not in compress, right?
I don't know.
I use it. Yeah. What, here?
Yeah, it's just like I never heard anything like it in my life.
Yeah. And, you know, 2 Coles mics in front of a drum kit through that thing. You know, that's what we used on Arctic Monkeys. And it was like, oh my God, this is the thing. And Glyn Johns Coles. I have recently fallen in love with Stam Audio. The guy is insanely talented at what he does and cheap. You have to wait a year and a half for a ship, but that's okay. So I got 2 Stams, then 2 1176s. So one should always have 4 1176s so you don't run out. And then this is actually a new LA2A, or newish, like 20 years old. But it has a replaced optical cell, which is kind of custom, and new old stock tubes, and it actually sounds really good.
Just real quick here. So we've looked at a bunch of compressors. So like those 1176 are FET limiters or VCA compressors. The LA2A, that Teletronics that he was just talking about, is a photo-opto cell compressor, which means it's going to use an actual light to sort of do the compression. When he was showing the Varimu, the old Varimu by Manley, and I think you had another Varimu hanging out, right?
The Phoenix is a Varimu as well.
Those actually use a tube circuit, an actual tube to do the compression. So it's great to have all these different same utility, but it uses a different process to do the job, and they all have inherent things that are attributes of those. So having a rack with all this stuff in it is pretty stellar.
Yeah, I mean, these are basically sound making boxes for me.
Right.
There is some element of level control there,
yeah,
which is what compressors were initially made for. but each one has its own tonality and a thing that it does.
It's like picking up an old Instamatic camera.
Very much so. Or putting a different lens, putting an old lens on.
There you go. You've got a set of 160s down there. Is that what those are? The old
set of 160 VUs that we got from Australia for $400.
Oh, I'll give you $405 right now.
You got it. You got it. And then let's move over here. I always tell myself I got to buy another 500 rack because I got too many modules. Bunch of APIs because APIs rock. You know, it's a different flavor from the Neve Mike Pre. They're crunchier and faster and a little more open on the top end. They don't have the weight on the bottom end that Neves have, but they've got a certain something. If you hit them hard, they tend to bark, which is nice. And then set of Wonder Mike Pre's, just another flavor of Neve, basically. Extended low end, extended top end.
You got some 550 EQs up there. Don't forget those guys.
Oh, yeah. 550 A's.
Nice.
Yeah. Just hanging out. Actually, we just pulled them out of the rack and repaired them. So, and 160 XTs, some of my original compressors, you know, when I was like initially, I think I bought those when I was 22 or something.
Those are from your PV room.
That's from the PV room. Absolutely. And then, couple of old Altecs.
How are those?
1591, which is solid state, and then a 438A, which is tube.
You like those?
They're noisy. I love them. They have a sound.
Yeah.
Motown stuff, right?
Beatles stuff. The Altec 438 is the precursor to the RS-124.
Oh, okay.
Right. I think they made the 124 out of an Altec or something.
Gotcha.
A couple of broken Symmetrics 501s, which sound insane. They just do a thing. You just blow them up and they sound great. And then down on the bottom, what is that? Oh, that's a 201, Innovonics 201.
What are you looking at there? The silver one or the
this one, the white one?
Okay, I thought that was a Dolby A unit.
No, it's an Innovonics 201 compressor.
Okay.
Buddy of mine came in with one of these things, put it on a snare drum, and it sounded great, so I bought one.
Yeah.
And then at the bottom, okay, I'm going to show you this and then stand up because I can't see that.
Is that a Cinema?
That is a Lang 5-channel Lang tube EQ.
Wow.
100 hertz, 10,000, 10K, plus and minus. It belongs to this Lang PA system.
Wow, dude.
Right? Which is a solid state PA system, which at some point I will fix. But I looked at the back and there's this thing was connected by an umbilical to that PA system. And there's tubes in it. So it's inductor coil EQ, which is the same EQ as at Pultec, right? With a tube output stage. And there's 5 channels of it. So it's like having five fixed Pultecs.
And how does it sound? Stellar?
Amazing. Stellar. It definitely gets gritty when you hit it hard, but that's what I like, you know?
What do you got there to the right? I see you have a little fader station, like a little artist.
And then
I see the 40L. No, that artist mix there, and you've got some sort of...
Yeah, so this is... Oh, I forgot about this. As I said, I'm in love with Stam Audio. That's their Fairchild.
Oh my God.
That lives on my mix bus all the time.
Which is another Varimute compressor.
Yep. This has 18 tubes in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it vent enough there? It looks so tight in that little rack it would overheat, huh?
Yeah, it's got the whole back. It's got the whole back and underneath and the sides.
Oh, there you go.
It's all good.
Wow, and that's just a little artist mix, a little...
And it's a little artist mix. Sometimes it's nice to be able to grab some faders. Right. Especially on things with a lot of compression, a lot of EQ. You want to fade in the box, not fade outside the box.
And are you doing your automation in the box, leaving your faders at 0 on the desk kind of deal?
Yeah. almost exclusively everything's in the box now.
Yeah.
You know, and then we've got a big TV up there.
Right.
And if you are a mixer and you don't have one of those, you should get one of those.
What is it?
That's the TC Electronic. It's their level meter, but it gives you everything.
Like phase, lufts.
It's phase,
peak.
lufts, peak. It's got a scope in it. The whole 9 yards.
Just metering though. No audio process.
No audio. It's USB. You put a plug in on your master bus.
And that Lark is a 480L Lark?
That Lark is a 300 Lark.
Okay.
I found it's basically a 300 is one side of a 480L.
Gotcha.
And
there were some different patches in the 300L than there was in the 480, if I remember correctly, wasn't there?
A couple.
Yeah,
But
I remember there was always like some cool patches like the 224 had that the 480 wouldn't have, or vice versa.
Right.
It wasn't you could open all the reverbs on all machines for whatever reason. Maybe they wanted you to buy because they were like 20 grand, right? Weren't they insane?
A 480 was like $8 grand when.
Okay, so they wanted you to buy
they're still $5 grand. If you get a good one, they're $4 or $5 grand. You're like, I'm like, no.
It's for reverb.
But the new that is the Bricasti.
Right.
Everybody lusts after the Bricasti, and it's like, well, I can't hear that. I've gotten a little more utilitarian in my old age. I like plug-in reverbs because you can fuck with them.
Hey, Deverb sounds great just because it has a stupid looking interface. That's one of the best sounding reverbs that they have. That comes in. Revibe is great. Yeah, I mean, there's so many great. And Lexicon I have all the Lexicon plug-in reverbs. They're cool too.
Right. Keyboards. So we've got a Moog, Mini Moog. We've got a Prophet 6. Got a Juno 60.
Nice.
And if you can't get it done with those three, maybe plug-ins are the
I
way
see
you
a
need.
Tascam cassette deck over there.
Yes, absolutely. Besides just being rack filled, sorry, the racks are out because we were putting in this little, we're wiring for SDI so we can do video.
Oh, nice.
More video with Cat 6 and SDI all the way around.
I see a DAT machine above it.
Yeah. So the DAT machine for years was my headphone amp because it's wired into the crazy Patchbay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
and that's all Bantam, that Patchbay. A lot of times these Neve rooms are 1/4 inch Patchbays, or 1/4 inch.
It's all Bantam. We adapted my old studio. Let's get a little technical here. So I wanted to be able to walk behind my racks, so I actually made a closet. Cool. And you can actually walk in and stand up and change things. But
that's great, dude.
This is where all the wires come in, and they're all on DLs. So if you have to work on a Patchbay, you can just pull the DL, pull the Patchbay out.
Nice.
That's old school before DV25.
Amazing.
So yeah, these are the things that I thought about.
What a great studio, man. I miss going to studios.
Yeah.
What I saw an H3000. Can you just real quick? We'll pan through the rec.
Oh yes, here's some of the outboards. So H3000, PCM 42.
Oh yeah.
These things, which were like $300, which are total sleepers. The Electrics. It's an Electrics Mo Effects.
Huh. I remember.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
And then this one down here is called a Filter Factory, and it's a great filter. It's a stereo filter. Before Pro Tools, you could do all kinds of cool shit to your drums with a filter.
Nice.
And then these Korg STD 2000s, which are sampling digital delays. They're like 12-bit crunchy ass digital delays. Are great. I actually just went out and bought this Roland SRV 2000 because mine shit the bed. It's one of my favorite reverbs ever.
Wow.
This is just in there for the RL Exciter is just in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is my spring reverb.
Oh, nice.
And so that's a master room. I guess they call it a Super C. And if you come over here, these two tubes, which are about 3.5 feet long, are the springs.
Wow.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right.
Wow, dude, how cool. And what was the 40L was down, or the 300L was down below it?
Yeah, the 300's there.
Some interfaces.
Yeah. And then just 2 interfaces. I'm just using the Avid ones. Because you know what? They work. They sound good. They don't fuck up. What else can I show you in the that's a Vox oil can reverb. And you get into like
A bevy of pedals.
pedals, more pedals.
Do you play guitar?
Hmm?
Do you play guitar?
Picture David Bowie. No, but they are, it's like compressors.
Right.
Every guitar sounds different. So we've gotten a bunch of guitars over the years. And a lot of it's like people will come in with their one guitar and it just doesn't cut it. So,
Right.
Ugliest guitar ever. It's a Tala 12 string. But, you got to have a couple. And then an ARP, Selena, an Elka organ.
An Elka.
Right.
I played an Elka in my first band.
Really?
I borrowed it from a girl in my class.
Never gave it back. Want to see a live room?
Yes.
All right. Let's take a walk. If you're from Boston, you know what that is. It's the hood sign from the old dairy. So here we are in the Mission Sound live room. I'll just do a little pan out.
Yes.
This is a massive room for New York City.
So yeah, we're, I guess, 11.5 at the top and 9 or so at the bottom. Just sort of go around here this way.
Oh, wow. Flip top.
Couple of amps. Current favorites are 67 Vibrolux.
You have those crazy magnetones that had the dual vibrato.
Yep. I just bought another one. The Lewis Electronic, Lewis Electric, which is awesome.
Couple jazz choruses there.
Couple jazz choruses, bunch of Fenders.
Outside,
I'll pull this out.
Dolrec.
Yeah, and raise the price for everybody. That's the magnetone.
that thing.
Oh, wow. And is that a B15 beside over there, that Ampeg?
Oh yeah,
B15.
19. What?
That Magic Marshall.
The which? The Magic Marshall?
That's it right there.
That's the one right there.
What is that?
It's a 1973 JMP or 74 JMP.
Wow.
And it's been modded. It was a 100-watt JMP and modded properly down to 50 watts.
That's the coolest sound Marshall I've ever heard. That thing is magic.
That's magic. The guy's been trying to buy it back from me for like 20 years.
Incredible.
Sold it to me for $400, and I'm like, yeah, okay, sure.
I've never used that orange stuff. How is it?
Orange makes one good amplifier, and it's this one. It's the Reverb 50, for my money anyway. People come in with the 80-30s all the time, and they're trying to be Voxes, and they're not. This is amazing, though. It's definitely one of the desert island amps because it does everything. It does beautiful, clean, Class A 6L6 clean, and then it does that British dirty thing.
Yeah.
So you can get it done.
Yeah.
And then let me see. I'm not going to pull them out, but there's JC120, Magnavox, Vox. What is this?
Silvertone?
It's a Silvertone. Yeah, it's a Silvertone. 67 Vibrolux, another M10 Magnetone, Super Reverb. Old like wacky Seymour Duncan, something I found on the street. Something a friend of mine built. Dual rectifier, which, believe it or not, we've been using a lot recently.
That's the one you could take the tubes out and change between, right? There was a bunch of
What, the Seymour Duncan?
no,
Or
the dual rec. I thought you could like swap out the tubes.
Oh, it's got like diode or tube, but it's a switch on this.
Oh, gotcha.
I think what you're talking about, Joe, is I think you can make it EL34 or 6L6.
Yeah.
I had the recto verb, and I believe that you could switch in the back. You can make it. You could choose 6L6 or EL34s.
Gotcha.
That's
JCM 800 or 900 there.
JCM 900. Yeah, I skip over that most of the time because it's like just loud and obnoxious. Believe it or not, Black Star made. So I guess it's guys from Marshall, and they cut a deal with the devil and made like shitty Chinese shit, but they also made hand wired amps. That was their deal. Can we just do this, And they made this amp, and it's beautiful. It's 25 or 15 watts, or 30 or 15 watts, and it sounds amazing. Mm. Again, another sleeper. Most of these things like don't go into cabinets anymore. They go into the UA aux.
Wow.
Which they sound great. I'm a convert and lazy. All right. Moving right along. Might as well go over here. Power supplies for lots of tube mics. Just because,
Mm-hmm.
I never know how to show the live room.
Ah, great.
I think your finger's a little bit over the camera on the top left. There you go.
That better?
There you go. Are those C-37s on the top?
Those are brand new JC-37s by Tone Lock.
So copies of the Sony C-37s, huh?
Yeah. So Joe Ciccarelli, who came up, I guess, in LA I forget where he came up, but he fell in love with C-37s, and he contacted Tone Locks, and they spent several years building them, figuring it out.
Wow.
And they're pretty damn close.
What's the price range on those?
17 or 18, I think.
A piece.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're magic. The C-37s are magical mics.
They really are. When they're right on something, they are very right. They're super, super low mid forward mics.
Yeah.
Like to the point where you feel like, where's the high end? But when you put them on the right thing, like cymbals or a guitar amp or a bright piano.
I used those on the Emmylou Harris record that I did with Dan Lanwell and Malcolm Byrne. And she played and sang in a C-37.
You did that record.
I did Stumble into Grace.
Wow.
And we put one on her vocal and one on her acoustic guitar, and she was in a room full of people playing. And you could take that guitar and you could pan her vocal center and pan the C-37 on her acoustic all the way left with no issue.
Wow.
It just sounded incredible. And it's like, you say it's mid forward, and it is very mid forward, but it's like once you hear it, it's like you can't hear it any other way. It's like mid becomes the new low end. It's like,
exactly.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. And as overheads, I'm just really digging them.
Wow.
And then, so if your basic setup here, I guess there's a D112 in, Effect 47 out, and then a Yamaha NS10 subwoofer,
right,
which is just kludged into a radial direct box,
which essentially is a sub kick. Everyone,
right? Except it sounds better because they didn't try and tune it. See, the thing about sub kicks is if you're in the right tuning on your kick drum, which is whatever they decided, they've got a tuned chamber around that speaker. Mm. So if you change the tuning on your kick drum, it may or may not be right with that sub kick.
I see.
And you can't change the tuning on that sub kick. This is just a speaker.
Gotcha.
So you can't, if you've got a semi-dead, woofer and a soldering iron and a wire, a guitar cable, you can make this.
And for people who haven't seen these outside of like a sub kick, every speaker can be a microphone. It just is like, in essence, a less efficient microphone. but it you can run a signal all the way forward and backwards in a chain from microphone to speaker, from speaker back to microphone. If you put an output signal through a microphone, you will blow it up, but it will be a speaker.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't try this at home, kids.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely. That's like lesson number one. And the thing about it is it only picks up low end because it's like a really thick diaphragm.
Right. What's on your toms? Are those ATMs or Josephsons?
No, these are Josephson's E22Ss.
Those are brilliant mics.
Absolutely brilliant. Really super directional. They just do not blow up.
We just used those on a film shoot with Near Z for Sonar, because Near has a couple of Josephsons. So
I miss Near.
Yeah, he's great. But he was telling me they're essentially KM84s hot rodded. Is that what your understanding of them are?
I have no understanding of that. I did not know that.
Well, that's the
I think
unvetted answer.
What?
That's the unvetted answer.
I think the diaphragm is larger actually than a KM84. Possibly they were going for the same EQ curve.
Gotcha.
And as a matter of fact, I did used to use my KM84s on toms occasionally.
57 on top. Do you have an under snare mic?
57 on the bottom. Now, the deal with the 57s is Cloud Lifter.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with this?
I have one, but I don't have one like that. Mine's just a regular plug it in and get clean gain out of it.
That's variable impedance. And you can really dial in snare drums with it. It's pretty amazing.
Now, are you doing the two mics into one mic pre deal with your bottom and top snare, or two separate mic pre's?
No, I put them at approximately 45 degrees and flip one out of phase.
And it goes one to one mic pre?
No, it goes to two mic pre's.
Okay, yeah, because there are folks that use that cable where they're going to put them both in. Yeah.
Yeah, no. Phase is that crazy monster. You got to get it right. And once you get it right, don't fuck with it. But like, for instance, my overheads, doesn't matter what I do, these overheads are going to be out of phase with the kick drum or with the snare drum. Right? If I measure them, they're out of phase with the snare drum. If I don't measure them, they're out of phase with the snare drum. Doesn't matter what microphone I use, they're out of phase with the snare drum.
Well, how about this? You'll zoom into the timeline and you'll look at absolute phase on a track, but then you'll sit there and you'll toggle back and forth. And some of the times I'm like, it sounds better with the phase going to the south than to the north. So I just leave them. What do you do?
If everybody's going to the south, that's fine. It depends on what you're leaning on. If you're leaning heavily on kick and snare, and everything else is sort of ancillary. And then it gets to the point also where with room mics, as you get further away and more compressed, phase becomes less of an issue.
Yeah, but like, let's say I get my kick and snare in phase, absolute phase, positive phase, going north.
And they're going positive to the north, right?
Yeah. And then I have my overheads and they're out of phase. There are times where I'll toggle back and forth and my ears will like the going south version. So I leave them there. I don't know what to say about that.
But that's fine. There's no right or wrong. There are people that go through with a clicker and make sure everything goes north first.
Right.
But I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't make sense because some things are further away, so they're not going to go north first.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I don't know. That's the point at which I go, okay, I'm not a physicist.
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder makes great records. You can't see shit.
Right.
I see you have some absorption on each side of the kit there.
Yeah, there's a little
blankets,
something to keep the left right together.
Uh-huh.
You can hear it, in my voice. You can hear the resonance in the room.
Yeah,
it's pretty crazy. The theory was I can make a live room live, but I can't make a dead room live.
Right.
And I can dead live room.
Right. Good point.
What are you using for room mics on those drums?
All right. So close room is a Coles. And that's, I change everything every time. There's a couple things I do classically sort of thing. And I just got back to this. Okay. So this is my new old thing. This is, you'll recognize that from Kaplan.
Yeah.
Right. He's had to have the Coles on the close room. Right? And I just got back to this thing. These are Earthworks TC30Ks. and they're about an equilateral triangle. Like if I'm standing by the kick drum, equilateral triangle about, I don't know, 8-9 feet away from the kick drum on the floor, and they're Omni mics. And what happens when you put an Omni mic right next to the floor is they become PZMs.
Just think
big kick drum.
Big drum set.
Yeah. So do you haven't had any issues with those? Because I know that they were having issues with them against coupled transformers and Neves, the TC series. No
what?
issue?
Or humming or?
No, they just weren't powering the mics up. I've got a set of TC40Ks, but somewhere along the line they resolved them. They had OM1s, TC20Ks, 30Ks, and 40Ks, and there was some issue with them working with Neves and not being able to be powered up because of some transform issues. But obviously, you don't have that trouble.
Well, I don't know. That's weird. You know, again, my phantom power comes from my Patchbay, so it's not.
Okay.
You know, so I'm hitting the phantom power doesn't feed out off a bus bar and through the transformer.
Yeah, those TC40Ks are the TC series, outstanding mics. They were originally that was David Blackmer's DBX, David Blackmer's company.
Yep.
And those mics were sort of based off my understanding off of the B&K 4007s, which were the old reference mics they'd used to do time energy frequency analyzation of your control room, like one of the world's flattest microphones.
Right, which again is, in some cases pleasing, in some cases not.
I don't know if you've tried this, but we always use them as a binaural pair on a stereo stick, and it's pretty outstanding. Yeah, no, they're pretty cool that way. I've done a lot of guitar work that way. Did you have another mic in the back of the room there, like a? Yeah, I do. So this is the Chandler REDD.
Oh, that's the one, right?
This is the one, baby. It's I wanted to hate it. Goes on. What don't I know about this mic? All right. What don't you know about this mic? Start with FU47-ish capsule. Add a REDD 124 mic pre inside the microphone. Oh wow. Yeah, pretty crazy, right? So when you come around to the back of the microphone. Let me see if I can get here. This is the microphone, right? It's got a mic pre-level in the back of it. Is that what we're seeing? Yes, it's a mic pre-level in the back. That's wild. Which you can, if you run it at 0, it's mic level, and you can go into a mic pre. My money spot on this is running it at about -20, and then going into a Neve line amp. And giving it about 10 plus 10 dB of Neve line amp, and it's like God. And it has a drive circuit which overdrives the mic pre. Now I haven't played with this too much because I haven't played with it too much. So there it is. There is a low contour knob, which basically is a roll off. Mm-hmm. There. You have it at 0. I have it at 0 at the moment, and which is where I like it. I've turned it on and off, and I'm sort of like, yeah, okay, whatever. Usually I'm in a session when I go to do these things. So again, it becomes, I'm not going to play with it because I need to get the session going. Dude, the level of detail in the gear that you have in this room, I mean, it's like a question mark surrounded by a enigma surrounded by a black hole. I mean, there's so much minutia in what it takes to make a record. If people have made it this far into the podcast, leave a comment. We're going to find some prize to give you. But you're a special breed of cat, both you and the audience. I mean, I love this stuff. This little, you got to be into it. This really little crazy stuff that's like, I love that you don't use the same microphone setup all the time. I love that you've got, all this philosophy on every piece of gear. I change up every time. Uh-oh. These are, so we were talking about the C-37As, right? Right. Let's see if I can do this. It's great holding the, okay, hold on a second. This is where a microphone goes on the floor. Right. There it is. This is a Sony C-57. And these have AC701 tubes in them. So very much like the Neumann KM56 or SM2, which is a stereo version of that. It's a small to mid diaphragm cardioid condenser mic, tube condenser mic. Just insanely awesome, cool, mid-rangey, upper mid though, as opposed to the C-37s, which are lower mid. Tough as hell.
And what, all these mics live a special place, or do they just sort of live around?
Well, they're here. Okay, so you start here.
It's not like you have a vault somewhere where you're opening drawers and going down through. They just sort of sit.
I have too many mics, and I don't have enough storage. So this is, 47, 47, 67, C12s, Microtech and Gefell UM70s, Stagers,
wow,
AEA 44, AEA R88, a bunch of Royers. Then you get in here, and it's just more mics. You get in here, U87s, another U67.
Does your wife know how much shit you have?
Yeah, right. Look at those RCA BK5Bs.
RCA BK5Bs, more Coles. That's
have you had your BK5Bs worked on, or are they stock?
Reslow sound. They are stock.
You know that guy? Who's that guy up there that does a great job? The original RCA. Yeah, I just had mine done at his place. It's awesome.
Very cool. And then anything that resembles a 57.
Incredible. Incredible. 441.
Yeah, 440, 441s, 421s, kick drum mics of various shapes and sizes. That's going to be direct boxes when they're in there. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on.
Incredible.
The venerable SM7, of which I have 4, because you can't have enough. Yeah. So, there's 267s, 347s.
Wow.
The red. I wish I had real 47s. I don't. I have 2 Wonders and a Flea.
Mm-hmm.
I love them both. Both manufacturers, but I'm at this point, I'm not going to pay $18,000 for a good 47.
Yeah. I mean, duly noted.
Mm-hmm.
So what else we got here?
That's the B3.
Mm-hmm.
Tack piano behind it. Another organ-like thing.
And for those of you who don't know a tack piano, they just actually literally put tacks in the hammers of a regular piano, like thumbnails, thumbtacks.
Sounds sort of
like a harpsichord.
Sounds kind of metallic. If you think about any Western movie you've seen,
you're right.
That guy. And this is our big ISO booth that we're going into now.
Wow, look at that.
And that is a Yamaha C7.
Probably the best recording piano ever.
Kinda. They sound pretty good. And not wired at the moment, but these are KM84s on it right now.
Nice.
On a stereo bar. And that'll end up generally being like the bright side, and then I'll put something in the bass.
Gotcha.
But and everything's wired for private queue everywhere. Generally wired. The other thing we did was we wired the entire studio for speaker and guitar level, so you can be in the control room and play.
I love your little chandelier over there above your mics.
Yeah, we got a little vibe thing we can turn on at night. You can see in here. So there's we can move my hand. We have natural light, much to the chagrin of anybody who wants to film in here. This is funny. Telling myself a little bit. After 20 we're at 21 years now. After 21 years, you couldn't see through the control room window because New York, just the air quality in New York had it was like somebody had been in there smoking for 21 years.
Oh, wow.
So we just pulled off the outside window and cleaned the entire thing. And it was disgusting. But now we're good. You can now see
another 20 years of abuse.
Yep, another 20. Well, let's see. What else can I show you? Well, I'll show you the
incredible,
the
dude.
The drum booth.
Oh, this is a drum booth. Look at that. Don't even give him a window.
Yep, just bang on the door. And this is a mess right now because we just had a drum session. But from left to right, Pearl, Yamaha, Gretsch.
Yeah, Gretsch there.
In the back, the black ones are 78 Ludwigs. The chrome ones it's a set of chrome, I believe 73s.
Ludwigs.
The blue is the 68 Ludwig kit. The silver kick, which is with Tom's around here somewhere over here, is Custom Smith. One of my favorite sets is
look at that finish.
Japanese copy of a Slingerland from early 60s. And it's made out of lawn plywood, like crap. And it records like you wouldn't believe. It's so good. Just amazing. And then
wow.
Not near as E's collection, but a few snare drums. So yeah, there's choices.
Incredible, dude.
Yeah.
It's like a working museum.
Kinda. I mean, yeah.
It reminds me of like Muscle Shoals or Famous. What I would imagine going into one of those studios would be. It's just like everything you could possibly need to make a record is somewhere in the confines of the studio.
Well, that's the thing. And you know what? It's not all hidden. It's out. So when a musician walks into a room and there's toys and they walk in and it's out, it's there, it's tactile, and they can touch it and they can play it and they can become inspired by it. Whereas if you walk into a live room and nothing's there, it's clean and it might be really pretty, but that's not how people get inspired by empty rooms.
Great point. Great point. Well, where can people find you? Is it missionsound.com?
Missionsoundrecording.com.
Okay, we'll put that down in the description of this episode. Any other links that would be helpful for people to get in contact with you, or you want them to see?
Everything's pretty much right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I got number, email. I'd love to hear from anybody. We love recording.
Obviously, man. This is not a dude trying to squeak along and buy Chick-fil-A franchise. This is a guy that's committed to recording and the idea of digging deep. I mean, as you got into the mic pre in the microphone, I was like thinking to myself, we have really found our people on the internet. If they're here at this point, this is the subsect of a subsect of a subsect. We're just like digging deep, and I love it. Selfishly.
You want to talk about making beats next? We could do that.
If you want,
next episode.
Honestly, though, if you want to be inspired making a record, you gotta go to Mission. I don't say that very often, but man.
I appreciate that.
But I'm being dead serious, man. That I'm looking at it, I'm just like, I gotta get back there. I remember the way it sounds and the way it feels looking at it. I'm like, I gotta get back there.
Yeah.
Come up anytime.
Well, I can tell you, I've heard a ton about your studio and you over the years. It's the first time I get to hang with you, and I feel like if I went there and made a record, it would just be like seamless. It'd be like, I feel like I know you already. So it'd be I'm sure the energy in that room would just be fantastic. It sounds great, and just the vibe of it. So cool.
Appreciate it, man.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time and showing us your room. It's truly spectacular. Your lounge is literally the size of most New York studios that I remember.
Bigger.
Absolutely. Hey, it's been great, man.
All right, pal. Thanks. That's it for this one. Tune in, folks. We'll see you next time from the West Barn.